Comptroller. I always have a problem with that word, controller, comptroller. She is the comptroller, and I'm talking about the Honorable Barbara Miller Williams, and she'll be in. She's already here, but she'll be in soon. And what I want to tell you while we await, I know the terrible incident of the shooting that has occurred, killing that young child and wounding another. And, I just want to say to those who know something, I want to encourage you to speak up. I know some of you scared. I know some of you think about if I say something is going to happen to you. Well, I think it is incumbent upon you to speak up. I don't think you should live in fear. And I don't think you should use as excusiology something bad is going to happen. Something bad is not necessarily going to happen. But think about it. If it was happening to you and your family, and there were people who saw and know, I think you would want them to speak up. I think we have to dispel the fact that so many people try to use as an excuse that they're scared of what would happen to them. Yes, they're scared, but you can't all be scared. And I'll just say, if you find a way within your heart and mind to step up and speak up, I know there are others who will stand with you. I'll stand with you. I mean, I'm not no Superman, but in terms of feeling like you need someone to be with you, I'm willing to do that. I just want to urge you to speak up. We need to not only have folks who are running around shooting up in our neighborhood apprehended, but we need to find a way to close the gap from how the resourcing of these guns. Where are they coming from? What is the pipeline? Certainly some information is known about that, and it needs to be shared with elements of the community. Anyway, I just want to say that out there because I know everybody's talking about that, but not enough people are doing something about it. And one of the things is shaking the fabric of our community of those who know and have seen something. You need to step up. And if anybody knows of a person involved with it, if you don't want to call the police, I'm telling you, you call me. I'll tell them who it is. I'm hoping that the cameras that are around in that area will help the police apprehend the person or persons involved. And I'd say to the community, this is, we're talking about see something, say something. Well, I want to do something. And look, you can't profess to care about yourself, your family, or your community if you walk around pretending to not know something about these terrible things that happen. That's all I wanted to say to you. And like I said, if you decide you do want to say something and you want somebody to walk with you, like I know there are others who will walk with you, but I'll commit to going with you all the way. Because it's time that we, it's a no nonsense time. Anyway, I'm glad I just wanted to drop that little message to you. And we're ready to go. Austin is in the house, and we got our most honorable guest, Barbara Miller Williams, in the house, and I'm so pleased. Sometimes, and y'all know, since we tease about political folks don't want to come here. Yes, they do. Last week we had Howard Johnson, and he's a witness that we don't bite. and Barbara is not a stranger. She's been here before, so I know she don't duck me. I know she got business, and to show you that how I know about, she will always show up in some capacity. When her office get on in and you send a request, they follow through. She called directly. less than some others could take. I'm thankful for that, Barbara. I'm going to say, Comptroller Williams. I'm very thankful for our friendship. Thankful that we have you today, because the budget is and I've had questions. They wanted to know, is the comptroller and the mayor in agreement? And so, well, on some things, and then on some things, and what a comptroller has to do, that ain't got nothing. Nobody got nothing to do with that. They answer on their own. I have people saying, well, how come the city doesn't have all the money that they should have that was supposed to be doing things, and now it's gone, and now they're talking about they got other bills? Why? And then I'll add this other one that was asked about raising the taxes when the state only requires or a 2% raising. They went like 2 times. And how does that happen? And Anna, do you have any role in with that? I want to do awesome opportunity to reach you as well. And then we'll turn you loose. The mics will be all yours.
It's a pleasure to meet you today. I was trying to do some research as I was driving over, but I hate to always have to be the one to bring us back, but I'm supposed to represent the young perspective. So I'm going to ask you, before you get into the duties and the question that he asked, can you just explain to me and all probably the young listeners listening, what is a comptroller and what do you do for the city of Buffalo in your daily activities?
That is an awesome question. Awesome. And you know what? It's a great question, because my response, I hope, will be embraced by not only the young people, but the mature people as well. You'd be surprised that as I walk through life, people just don't know. The role of comptroller is not something that we sat around the dinner table and we talked about. We're all very familiar with a council member. We're familiar with the legislator and the mayor and the governor. All of those roles, we know the president. But when it comes to the comptroller, there's 2 terms. In the private sector, you will hear the term controller. In government, you will hear comptroller. And we are basically, as I often tell people, the young folks, I'm like Carly B. I make the money moves. Okay? I'm the one who watches every nickel and dime. Somebody has to make sure the money that's coming in comes in correctly, and the money that goes out. I have oversight, fiscal oversight over your tax dollars and any grants or revenues that come in from any source, whether it's public and or private. So that's what a comptroller does. It is a totally separate branch of government from the mayor and the county council. So in our city of Buffalo, we have those 3 levels. Yes, we do work together, but I have a separate and distinct role. I always say that because I've had an opportunity to serve in different capacities, this position as comptroller, I love it, because at the end of the day, 1 + 1 = 2. Okay. There's no politicking. There's no deal cutting. There is none of that in the middle. You can't change 1 + 1 = 2. And that's why I love being in this position, because it gives me an opportunity to, while there's gray areas, at the end of the day, it is what it is. So, and then last but not least, is if you also think of the role, I'm beginning to get a reputation and folks are starting to look at me like the IRS. Because we do audits. When they see me coming through the door, they're a little uncomfortable. But if you're paying your taxes and you've submitted your returns correctly and you're following the rules, don't be worried about me. Right. But if you haven't, you need to be a little nervous. It's your duty. It's my duty. I took an oath of office. I was sworn to do the job, and we're going to figure it out. I think that's where a little bit of my law enforcement might come into play. Yeah. I'm able to do a little investigating sometimes, and we're finding things on people. So that is the role of the City of Buffalo Comptroller, is to basically look out for the taxpayer dollars, whether it's in the form of grants, property taxes, fees, etc.
Well, I think I'm good on my tax. I think we good. I can't speak.
I'm good.
I
I'm
think
good.
we good. So
I'm good. Thank you. I wouldn't call the police and no, being good.
Well, thank you for that answer, though. I do
You're
appreciate
very
it, and it
welcome.
gives me I think gives me and other viewers a good place to start this conversation from, so we can understand what you do, but maybe also what you don't do, so we can know what's important questions to ask. So thank you.
And with that being said, what I don't do, quite often people think that I have the authority to tell the mayor what to do, to tell the council members what to do. I don't. The city charter clearly dictates and it outlines this is my role as like the banker. It is the budget, the city budget is the responsibility of the mayor. The mayor advances it, the council members review it, they make amendments, they can take away, but they can't add. And then it goes back to the mayor. It can be vetoed, it can be approved. But at the end of the day, I'm sitting back watching all the dynamics. And what I do is I say, that's not a good idea. That's good, that's bad. You need to change this, you need to change that. But I have no authority to put numbers in and take numbers out. But I have oversight over it. And there's 2 times when I, as a controller, I do something called when they do their budget, I'm able to do the budget response. And I do that every year by a specific time in May. It's on or before the 10th day of May, as per the charter. So even in the midst of the budget process, I will always do a response to the mayor's budget. And it's also the 4-year plan. And what I'm doing is whatever the mayor is putting on the table for the council members, we tear it apart and we put in there what we see, good, bad, and ugly. Then we get on out of the way. The council members go through the motion of doing their budget hearings, etc. And then I also, recently, I did a budget amendment response to the council members, because what I've seen is far too often, the mayor will advance the budget. The council members is so overwhelming because they have a short window to look at that recommended budget. They get overwhelmed, and sometimes they will just, for lack of a better term, quote, rubber stamp, unquote, the actual budget. I give them my response, and I say to council members, if this is what you all are doing, this is what I'm going to critique you, just like I critique the mayor. So this year, I did a budget amendment for the mayor's budget. I also did one for the common council, because what I see happening next year is a lot of fingers are going to be pointed.
Oh.
A lot of fingers are going to be pointed. And I see that the administration and the county council, who has the approval authority with the budgets, somebody is going to have to wear 2026. We are fine this year. When people say, where is their money? How is it spent, etc. This year's budget, it is structurally sound, which means that there's enough money on paper to cover the expenses for what we would like to spend this year. However, the concern I have as controller, and I'm trying to break this down in layperson's terms so it's easier to understand, because I'm not a CPA or anything like that, but I'm surrounded by those from the financial world that are. And I constantly say to them, I need to be able to articulate and explain these things to everyday people so that they can relate. Right now, in our checking account with the city of Buffalo, we look good on paper, but we have a lot of if-come income. And I tell my granddaughter, you can't spend money that you haven't gotten yet. Well, Grandma, if it comes and when it comes, no. You can't count on certain things. Some things are definitive, but other things, when you want to do all this extra, if you don't have it for sure, you may have a problem. And in this year's budget, we got a lot of that if come maybe. We got money where for the Native American from the Casino Tribal Compact. We might get that money, we might not. We're talking about millions of dollars. We have things like the cannabis industry. There's money put in there to project that, we're going to get all these establishments set up and we're going to generate a certain amount of money. Well, we might not. And then there's the issue of taxes going up and fees going up. Well, not to be the bearer of bad news, but this is who I am. I'm fully transparent, and I'm going to put it out there. People are really disappointed when initially the taxes were being proposed to go up 9%.
Right.
It's that 9%, while folks I would have loved to have seen 2% every year. That's an ideal 2% every year, but we went too many years.
Right.
And we didn't raise it. So by law, New York State says we can raise it 9% because we've stayed flat so long.
Gotcha.
It's nice for me to say to you all, I'm not raising your taxes. I'm not raising your taxes, and I'm not raising your taxes.
Avoiding
However, expenses are still going up. You know, you want an increase in your pay. You want a new trash container. We have snowstorms pop up. How are we supposed to pay for that? So right now, because the taxes didn't go up for many, many years, now there's got to be a deep jump. And that causes a lot of stress and turmoil for people, especially those that have financial constraints. So we are within the tax levy as per the state to have gone up to 9%. That's what the mayor came out with. The council members took it down to 7.5. Yes, good for them. They reduced it instead of 9, 7.5. But guess what? In the budget, then that means you got about 2.5% of money that
it's not going to be.
It's not going to be there. So where are we going to get that from? Where are we going to get that from? So they went around the other way and said, well, let's increase the user fee. Let's do this. Let's do that. At the end of the day, the revenues that we have coming in the city of Buffalo, it's going to be tough to match them with the expenditures. Next year, it's going to be extremely difficult because we plugged the hole with what's called the ARP funding. And we got about 40 million from the COVID, the pandemic. The federal government dumped a lot of money on the city of Buffalo. That money runs out this year. So this year we used 40 million from ARP funding, plus we used 14 point something million from what's called an unassigned fund balance. It means like, you know, you worked a little bit of overtime and you had an extra $20. So you paid your bills, but you had $20. And every week you put that $20 aside, and before you know it, you got $1,000. Well, in this year's budget, we had to pull that whole $1,000 and plug the hole. So now, how do we put that money back over there? It's nice. There's another hole coming. It's nice to have a rainy day or a savings account. That's a beautiful thing. But you also have, if you use that money, if you have to buy new tires for your car, you have to make sure, well, what if I need the air conditioning unit fixed in 6 months? You have to be able to put some money back to rebuild those savings. So in this year's budget, on paper, we are looking very well if all those incomes come through. But currently, the revenue and the expenditures, on paper, they look good, but next year we're going to have a whole nother story because we don't have 2 to 3 to 4 to 5 significant forms of revenue that we're counting on now. They will probably not be in existence next year. It's going to be tough next year.
Wow.
We'll survive this year, but next year is going to be difficult. And it's been coming for years. I've been in office for 5 years. The first year, it was tough. It was tough. My first year, 2019, but the pandemic hit in 2020. And unfortunately, in spite of all the other problems that the pandemic caused, we were able to get an influx of $352 million dumped into the city coffers. That has saved us year after year after year. But that was one-shot revenue. Absence of another pandemic, we're not going to have that money next year.
Wow. You know, before we go to take the caller, I got to tell you, just listening to you, I sat here and said, you know, this is almost like an on-air TED talk. And I'm glad to have the mics to free you to go, because I don't think we get a chance to hear you flow with what you do, what's going on. And then we hear stuff about, well, the comptroller approved something, and it's like, you the villain all of a sudden, but we still don't, somehow you the villain.
Yes.
But hearing you, I'll
let you know real quick. 2 things that, they dumped on me. I wear it. I'm tough. I'm a big girl. I can handle it. We have incidents like there was a Buffalo Fire Department employee, something like $600,000. The individual was not working, and somebody had the audacity to look at the controller's office and say, you paid this woman and you knew she wasn't working. How did you do that? Well, let me tell you something. There's thousands of city employees. It is not me and my staff's responsibility to see who's at work and who's not at work. Everybody, whether you're in the police department, the fire department, the public works, you have a supervisor. They submit to us a document that says, John Smith worked on this day for these hours. That comes and they certify it and they sign it and da-da-da. They give it to us and we do the paychecks. We don't know who's there in the entire. So when it came down to, you're not going to ship that on me and my people. We have documentation. You told us to pay this person. We're going to stop that like immediately and ship it back to where it needs to go.
That's a huge.
So we have a situation currently going on now. I'm getting beat up over.
Well, before I let you go to, let's take your call. Caller, you're on the air. Welcome.
Comment on Facebook too.
Caller, you're on the air.
Someone oversight them, because if it's not happening on a consistent basis as it should, as it is compiled, because it didn't happen when it should have happened. I don't know if the pandemic has anything to go around, but if that's a normal process, what can be done so that there is not a compilation because of delays? No.
We caller.
Get what you have to say. Thank you.
Caller, the first part of that question, could you just repeat that again?
I said the comptroller did a pretty decent way of making it make sense as far as her duties are concerned. But when she explained how the 9% accumulated, I want to know what can be done so that it won't accumulate to the degree that it hits everyone so hard at one time, especially the working poor.
Great.
Where we can't really do much about it, but suffer consequences.
Thank you for that. That's a huge question and a very good one. Thank you.
May I suggest that something that could be done is when the public hearings are held, when it's time for the budgets to be put in place, if people would come out and attend the public hearings and voice your concerns. Because the budget, when it's put in place by the administration and then advanced to the county council, that is the time for the public to say, we don't want to see such a great increase. We want it to be lowered. At the end of the day, expenses will have to be decreased in order to not increase revenue. And the largest source of revenue for the city of Buffalo is property taxes. And that's the most, that's where we get most of the funds to operate the city of Buffalo. So if citizens want to see that increase not occur or at a lower amount, the public hearings is the time to express yourself and articulate that to the administration and the common council.
Oh, right.
And can I also ask a question? For the people who are in these elected positions, it sounded like, and maybe this wasn't what you were insinuating, but it sounds like for these positions, when I'm running, like this is something that I want to put on my docket, like, hey, I'm not going to raise your taxes super high. And if all my competitors are saying that, and I'm the odd one out, then it's kind of like something that I kind of have to put on there. And so is there kind of this balance between like what we're hearing and what we're allowing public officials to say, and then what we're kind of seeing now where it's like, if you keep voting for people who are saying we're not going to lower your taxes, even though you know that inflation exists, right? We know inflation and prices are going up. We can't do anything about that. And so if we're expecting politicians to say that they're not going to raise their taxes, like, is there kind of a balance between what we're voting for and what they're then having to do every couple of years of raising it so extreme? Like, is it difficult?
You
for
are
them?
such a wise young man. And as a politician who has been in those shoes, it's very difficult. Because if an elected official, and I've been in that position and gotten beaten up many times, but only by the grace of God, I got enough votes to win an election. But I had a lot of folks who were not happy with me. If in fact an elected official or a candidate and they start to say, this is what we must do. We had a candidate running for mayor, and she clearly articulated that we needed to raise taxes. Miss Walton said that, and she got beat up from behind that. But guess what? We had to raise taxes. So it's not, so people don't want to hear that. And if they hear that and you say that, you're at risk of losing a vote. But it's the reality.
Yeah. Right.
If you don't, and then if you don't say it and you get in office and you do it, then you're being a hypocrite. So it's a balancing act. You have to be honest and transparent with people at the risk of them not agreeing with you and perhaps not voting for you.
And
Yeah, there's a question for, oops. I know. There's a question from Facebook from James Payne, and he asked, can't you borrow based on bond rating? And what is your bond rating?
Well, thank you, Mr. Payne. That's a very, very good question. Yes, we do borrow. And again, folks are not happy with me because in the 5 years that I've been the controller, I refuse to increase our capital borrowing. It's at the 29 million, and I have said to the administration, I'm not going to let you keep running up credit. You need to finish projects that are in place in action, and we need to reduce the debt. Then I will consider increasing it. But I don't think that you can borrow yourself out of debt. You have to get to a certain point where you stop and you say, no, we need to go in a different direction. I got some notes here to tell. Right now, the city's bond rating, while I've been in office, it's grown, and it's at it's A1 credit rating. The Moody and S&P's global ratings, we have an A+ stable credit rating, and I recently went to the market earlier this year, and we got a 2.78 rate, which is excellent. But I have stood strong, and I have said I will not increase the borrowing under any circumstances, and we have to live within our means. So again, I don't believe you can borrow yourself out of debt. You have to find a way to reduce and eliminate debt and not borrow.
I agree with that, and I'll tell you something else in that dynamic of what could be done. I don't find the issue with the comptroller. I find the issue with we the voters. You know, we get accustomed and addicted to hearing someone say, "Oh, I have written vote for me. I'm not going to raise taxes." Well, wait a minute. That's a sham. When we know there are needs in the community, we need to be saying, "Whoa, wait a minute. So how are you going to cover this need?" And see what they say about that. In other words, we have to be as wise as our political folks. In fact, we have to be wiser because they're sitting in the gap for us. And if they miss something, we need to be sure we check it to be correct. So if we know we got community needs that somewhere funds been coming up and we haven't been raising money properly to cover some needs, we just been borrowing, well, while this is still here, I'm gonna use that. We need to have those who are running for office who tell the truth, who get off of trying to hype us about, I'm not gonna raise taxes like that's the biggest thing. And every property owner knows that as the value of your homes go up, it is fair to ask for an increase. Wouldn't it be better if all those years we got shammed with, I'm not going to raise taxes, if that even just said 2%, 2% for all those years, and we wouldn't be in what we are now. That's not a foresight to the future. And I see the comptroller at the intersection there that has to say, whoa, you know, I'm here on the behalf of the people of the city of Buffalo. And that's what I see operating. And I'll say another thing. I would say you as a Black woman in that position is another issue that comes up. And I'm being real. We all know it. We all know that, you know, there's hesitancy and quick to challenge those of color and position like it's odd. Nope, it ain't odd. It's right. And as knowledgeable as anybody else and attainable by anybody that want to get in a race and run, if you want to run. You can't challenge the work, because if it was wrong, we would be hearing on it now. I think it's the politicians.
Absolutely. And Ms. Barber, I'm sorry, I got so many questions. This is super
Go
interesting.
ahead, go.
My second question, I know that Buffalo has if our number one income source is property tax. Buffalo has over 50% rental rate though, correct? So does that also play an impact to say that, and like we talked about this a couple of shows ago, when it comes to even the youth, our conversation I think needs to change a little bit from when are you moving out to when are you getting a home, right? Let's stop getting people just so focused on getting out the house and more focused on owning a house. Someone like me, I was talking to my friends, they were saying, how long would you want to stay at home till? I said, you know, I'd like to leave 21, 22, but if I could stay till 25 and move out into a house, that would be ideal. And I remember how weird that was. Like, you want to stay at home for that long? I said, well, I want a house. I want a house. I don't want to rent. I want to own something. And to that point, I just want to hear your opinion on how our real estate kind of situation and how many people are renting plays so much of a role into our ability to make money from, after, I guess.
We're going to a break. It's good, juicy in here. Hey, it's what we do.
Yes, I was telling him his grandmother.
We're still
actually- Yeah, we're on live stream. Yeah, so his grandmother was actually the administrator of finance for the city of Lackawanna before she retired.
Wonderful.
Yep. So I was like, you should know some of this stuff.
Yeah,
You need to talk to her, I guess.
I
She would get the same beat up as you got. People thought she had all this authority.
Right.
She did.
No, we do not. And you know what? And Jim, you're absolutely correct. Being African American, being a woman, we've never been in this position before. You'd be surprised how I am challenged. But this is my contention. I have surrounded myself behind the best and the brightest. I've surrounded those folks around me so that if I don't know something, they better know it. And if they don't know it, they better go figure it out. Because I can't survive this thing because I'm under a microscope. And if anytime I go wrong or off, I get beat up real bad from the majority and from the minority. And so I have to always be on point and know exactly what's going on.
Almost definitely. Look, I know, I've heard ears, you know.
And your question is going to be a good one because my granddaughter is 24. She owns a double here in Buffalo. And she was of that mindset. She stayed home. She put a few pennies together, but she got in before this pre-pandemic time. It's hard now. The real estate prices have shot up crazy. Rent is out of control. Interest rates are now back high. So 5, 6, 7 years ago was the ideal time. It's hard for not only young people. If you wanted to buy a home, if I wanted to buy a home, it's challenging. It's a seller's market right now. And keeping it real, something that I acquired maybe 10 years ago, purchased it for $9,000, sold it for $160,000. That's ridiculous. So for sellers, this is the best time to be. But for buyers, the struggle is real. Not only for young people, but for anybody going into the housing market right now.
Hey, we're back, and we still continuing. That's why you should catch us on Facebook as well as on air. Make sure you're always on air with us. So one way or the other, man, I'm telling you, so much goodness is dropped. Stuff ain't never heard. It's not only fresh for you,
yes,
but it's fresh for me, and I'm sure a lot who did not know what the role was, where the leverage was. And this conversation is opening up where the real target is. Those who run for office have to be more accountable. We don't want to hear no taxes. We want to hear what you have to do to meet the issues we confronted at that moment when you run it. And let me just leave this other thing about running. You know, when you're running, you bring what you got. And when you lose, that's okay, cool. It shouldn't change you for bringing what you got. And you should understand whoever gets has got a job to do. Now, if you find something wrong, you can speak to that. Not to the person, but to the work that's being done. I haven't seen anything that knocks down what you're doing. What I have seen, I'm probably sure among some of the politicals who on the council and probably the mayor is like a little of that. But you know how that go, and you're okay with it because you can handle it. You do. And I'm saying, people, we know that. So let's not play like we ignorant and like it's all on their back. It's on our back. We really need to rise to protect our comptroller more than we do.
I'm watching it. And you know what? At the end of the day, I just went to a National Government Finance Officers Association conference about 2 weeks ago. And sitting in the midst of folks from across the country, they're experiencing the same financial issues everywhere that we are here in Buffalo. It's not unique to Buffalo, New York. Taxes are going up.
Yep.
But the thing that I found most interesting is that there's other states and other cities and towns and villages, they're finding creative ways to increase revenue other than having a heavy reliance on property taxes. You can't keep doing what you're doing and think that you're going to get a different result. I need my council members and the administration. to come forward with revenue generating ideas that are solid and concrete, not increasing the user fee. We need to do different things in Buffalo. And that's not my job, but it is my job to put it out there is we need new revenue generating sources.
All right.
We can't keep relying on property taxes as the majority way of financing this city of Buffalo. We need bright young minds to come forward and say, well, I visited this state and I visited this city and this is what they're doing. And look at the millions that they're generating. Bring that to Buffalo. Bring that as a candidate, as an elected official, because right now we're void of new innovative ideas to generate new revenue.
See, you know, I'm gonna shut up and let you have the mic, because I just wanted to say I was thinking about that young people thing and wanting to have a home, and I was thinking about all that property that the city owned ain't done nothing with. You might want to have some targeted sales towards your generation that is ready to invest and build and become stable in the community. I mean, you're right. The stimulus of our electeds' mind happen with the people talking, but they also need to think about it too, and they need to look and they need to get around our community. You know, you need to. Not to your favorite clubhouse. I'm talking about get around, and you need to have some discussion with some of these young folks who are coming up, and don't hype them like about your job. Hype them how you can do that will bring a real opportunity and a lift up. And then we
got to get out of the way and let them do it.
Yep.
Because I am a seasoned elected official. I am aging out. I can't keep doing this forever. I need to sit down and be in the midst of my grandchildren, to be a mentor, to be a guide. But it is a struggle to get young folks to put this work in so that I can pass the torch. It's not easy. It's hard. It's hard, but I can't keep continuing to do it. I need that next generation. So I'm going to look around and say, here you go. Call me when you need me. I need to mentor. But that's where I need to say to the young folks, it's easy to stand outside and rattle and make a lot of noise. I need you to settle down, come on into the room, sit down with me and everyone else and help us to do better. You know, when we sat here and we had a situation with the speaker system, trying to get it to operate, guess what? I looked at that speaker and I didn't move because I don't know what to do. Jim, you picked it up and you attempted to figure it out. This young man, he adjusted it in a matter of seconds.
And you see that.
And that's where we are in this thing called life. I know what I know, but that next generation, they can do better than what I know. And we need to listen and give them that opportunity to do. I have positions in my office. I have vacant positions. I need that breath of fresh air in there. I can't find people to hire. A lot of young people are not interested in finance. Wow. I want people that look like me. I could go to Canisius College. I can go to certain institutions and find folks, but I'm trying to look for my nephew and my niece and somebody that I can pass it on to from the financial arena. The struggle has been real. I cannot find those individuals that are interested in finance to bring on board. And I have positions.
You see all that fruit being offered? I mean, look, y'all here? All right. You need to, I need to tell you, because I'm going to jump in there and find some too. But look, this is opportunity time. And I'm telling you, this is the comptroller on the mic. I mean, this is the longest and deep information that I'm hearing that really is like, this is very stimulating and very focused on what we really need to do. She keeping the checks and balances, and those that want to kind of go over don't want her to say nothing.
But I have to.
That's who we need to go. How you want to go over without? What made you come up with that? And why didn't you talk to us who elected you, Mr. and Mrs. Council Person? That's one of the problems. I know y'all like those gigs, but there's a responsibility.
And my door is always open. I tell to the citizens, to my colleagues in government, if you have a question, if you're not sure about something, call me, come see me. Me and my staff will answer your question.
Oh,
At
yes.
the end of the day, 1 + 1 is 2. I'm not going to tell you anything else. Whether you want to hear it or not, this is what we're working with. And I'm fully transparent.
Look, you got this mic, but I like just one last thing because she touched on something. I want to thank your office, your staff. Anytime I call, when I spoke to her, she called back. She followed up. That's how we set the preliminary date. And I'm like, I was very pleased because a lot of time you call office, you don't get that. You get roughed and shammed a little bit, but was received. I felt, man, I love it.
We're doing our best.
I think so. And this mic is always open to you. Whenever you need to and want to hit us and bring us up to speed on stuff, always open to you, whether you're in studio or whether call it in or however.
I like to invite myself to come back in the fall because in the fall we follow the budget. The budget year begins July 1st. July 1st, the new budget goes into effect, and it goes from July 1 through June 30th of the next fiscal year. In the fall, we start to do the quarterly reports, and we start to monitor the budget. I like to come back and share with you, like in the first quarter, and just say to you, this is where we're at. Come back in the half and say, this is where we're at, because the citizens need to have a blow by blow and know what's coming up, so that when next year, we're in the midst of budget hearings and budget negotiations that will be like April, May, June. Folks should not act surprised, because I'm going to be telling everybody, like I have been doing all along, whether it's in a press release or, whatever method, y'all need to know what's going on. The storm is coming.
And I want to comment on a couple areas that we touched on, but I'm going to focus on that last piece of property tax isn't going to be our only way out. I think number one, we're talking about as voters, the politicians that we're putting into office. I think that we have to change our mindset. When you're hearing these bold claims, ask them why. Because to me, if I was running, me putting taxes on my docket wouldn't be a draw against me. It's going to be a knock against you guys, because I'm going to go on the stand and say, okay, I'm saying let's raise 3%. They're saying none. Ask them how. Ask them how they're going to do that.
How do you feel the gap?
Then that's when I would have been able to use, or if I wanted to run, that's how I would use being honest as a beneficial or the beneficiary, my accountability and my transparency as a benefit, not a knock. That's me to start. Number two, I know you had spoken on renters versus buyers when we were on the break, but for the viewers that wanted to listen, essentially, it's becoming a lot more difficult to make that jump from a renting to buying, or from nothing at all, living at home, to buying. But one thing I need to keep in my mind is that it is still possible.
Yes.
And that if you're not looking, if you're not on Zillow, if you're not looking for these things, just as much I know a house may be difficult to find, I also know it's not going to follow me when I'm just walking through life. And so I do think, though it is difficult, if we are intentional and still making decisions to get into that field and still trying to make that jump, there has to be creative solutions. And this is where I want to end. What is that creative solution? We had Burgard in here a couple of weeks ago, and I'm going to say the same thing that I've said, and you said from other cities, so I'm going to use my experience in Atlanta. I was in Atlanta a little bit ago. We need to foster a better spirit of entrepreneurship in the city, and this is why. It's not because every young person is going to go out and start a business. When nobody has any experience with businesses, entrepreneurship is one of the things that looks really good on the outside till you get in. And if you ask a lot of people, adults in positions, a lot of adults didn't get into those positions because that was what they dreamed about when they were young. But as they've gotten older, passions can be both born with as well as discovered. And when we help young people understand and give them the freedom to say, what do you want to do in the fullness of that? There are probably some people who want to deal with numbers, who want to be really good with money, who will fit great in your office. But until they can explore some of these other avenues and get them knocked off and say, okay, maybe that's not quite what I want to do. Okay, I see how other people can doing it, and then get into those jobs and understand how that job is good for them. We're not going to have young people coming to these jobs and saying, I want this, because we're so focused on what we see on Instagram and things of that nature. When I look at it in Atlanta, I had to ask myself coming home, there's closed businesses in Atlanta too. But for some reason in this city, when people have an idea, they just start it. Because whether it's the city or the culture, when they have an idea, I want to see this business, they just do it. And what it does is though there are some jobs and positions and entrepreneurship places that are closing, for the people that leave that joint and say, oh man, that wasn't what I thought it was, business wasn't what I thought it was, the passion is still there. So look at someone like me. I love speaking. I speak for a living. I help people increase their soft skills, young people especially. I did it for 2 years without having a job after high school, and I said, oh, this is difficult. And so now I'm at Northland, who's doing exactly what you're saying, trying to bring in advanced manufacturing and clean energy back into Western New York. But why'd I go there in that position? I'm in outreach. Why am I in outreach? Because I had to realize, whether it was for myself, for my mom's company, or for a company like Northland, I like speaking and helping people. And I can still do that at that position. But it took, and I'm blessed because I had parents who allowed me to explore that freedom. It took 2 years of me exploring speaking, exploring different avenues. I was in advocacy. I'm on the radio. I was doing other things for me to realize, oh, I could do this job and I could enjoy it as well. And so to me, I think when I look at young people in the city, I have a lot of young people who want to dream, and that's great. We can't put away the dreamers, but there are people who are walking in dreams and never doing anything in real life to figure out if those dreams are even what they really want. And so to me, when I see a young person at school selling candy, when I see a young person cutting hair in the bathroom, maybe that's not going to be the job or position that you do forever. But I know I see a young person who wants to improve themselves. I think if we get better at bridging that gap, how to say that your dream may not look exactly how you see it, but you can still live a dream. That's how we get young people excited and fired up to come to work at the comptroller's office every day. But as long as we keep pushing people into these jobs without giving them the opportunity to explore, keep saying that just go to college, get this degree, get this degree, and we're not listening to what matters to us, then we're never going to see how a job at your office could be just as valuable as running a business. So I think we just need to fill that gap, because we have a lot of young people who just don't understand the value of a regular job or a job such as this one in the government, because we're so focused on these dreams that we're walking through and we see online. So I think we just got to bridge that gap to say that there's value in those positions as much as there's value in running a business, because neither one is going to be rainbows all day 24/7.
Jim, that was well said.
Yeah.
You know what? I'm loving everything you said, because that is a reflection of me and my life. I still have not figured out what I'm going to do when I grow up, because I am everything that you just described. I had a passion for this and a passion for that, and a dream here and a dream there. But at the end of the day, I realized I love helping people. I love serving. So while I was a police officer, I was out there trying to serve people. That's why I went to work. When I was in the military, I was trying to serve my country and community. You know, as a teacher, I'm serving those children and their parents. I had to realize that what makes me happy, my dream, is to serve and help somebody else, because I'm okay. I'm good. But if I had had people stifle those dreams and those desires, who knows where I would be today. So everything you said, I embrace, because that's me. I was all over the place, and I still am. I don't know what next year or tomorrow will bring, but I do know that I like helping people. I do know I like serving. I do know I like to do things right and in order. That I do know, but it took me 60 plus years to figure that out. You young folks like you all can figure it out in 5 or 10 years. You don't have to take 50 to 60 years to do it. So I concur and agree with everything you said, and I embrace it because it's part of my reality.
And I heard part of your answer to it earlier that fits in there when challenging council members to come up with a new ideas about how to bring revenue in. One way is, well, here's a thought that came up as I listened to you both.
Housing
Why can't the council do a rent to own
for young people?
Target at young people, which helps you move from I can afford rent, but I can't buy a house. They can create the guidelines under which that could operate. They could even do a pilot program to see whether it has life. The other thing, the discussion leads to the fact again, Councilman, when you hear a young person saying that, I don't know, you need to bring things to the part of the community you represent that allows them to explore out. When they were little, when we all were little in school, and they would take us on trips, ain't no reason why council pros can't take big folks on trips to accompany, arrange with industries that exist in the area, searching for new ways. It benefits everybody. Here's a company get introduced, showing what they do to a group of young people. Somebody gets excited and targets themselves in that way. But what it does is you're showcasing, we got people who can do, some getting interested, and you're showing young people what's beyond growing up from being a kid and stuck on Instagram. And young people still have to be challenged. I tell my young people, I say, look, Y'all are the bearers of the new knowledge, the new skills, the new energy, but you just arrived to the planet. And there's some things you gotta know. You know some stuff,
Right.
but you gotta know where to go to hook what you know into it.
Mhm.
And because we all work together, the struggle is intergenerational. It ain't that, well, you get old, you're out of the way. No, we just work in another capacity. We become part of the living shoulders that are lifting you. We're not just over there with us saying, well, we're standing on the shoulders of those who went ahead. Yeah. But some of us need to be living shoulders lifting you now. And I think I think the comptroller of the city of Buffalo just pulled the lid back, provide some deep education about that is clear when you see their role. And then it's like, okay, the who done it? All right. You feel, I know you got it, community. We ain't got it, this is what I love about it. And this is what I love about when folks come on and they just bring it. It's so warm in here with truth and just delight to hear you just, hey, and say, bring what you got, not ducking. I love it.
And I'm going to be walking out with having the seeds planted of the young people.
See,
And I'm also going to delete young people are not interested in finances because you have changed my mind. They haven't been exposed to it.
Okay.
Right.
So maybe if they are exposed to what we're doing on that 12th floor, it might be somebody that can
right.
come through the door.
One of you community centers ought to start an accounting club, a bookkeeping club to show
Something.
people how to do this.
If you like for example, for me, I have a friend who loves finance. I have another friend who's maybe not into finance. This is what I would say for the friend that's not in finance. I see you like money, right? You love touching, you love numbers. You may never see numbers this big ever in your bank account. Get a chance to experience it for the city of Buffalo.
Yeah.
That's something that if I was a young person could be like, oh, that's interesting. But if all we're talking about is college and I don't really know, I'm just going to shut down and get scared. And so I just feel like from what I hear, especially for successful people like yourselves, passion is discovered over time. But entrepreneurship, why I focus on that is because when I ask someone, what would you want to sell if you were a business owner? I'm able to get the truest answer of whatever you want to do with no holes barred, none of that. You're able to just tell me, if you were able to do anything in the world, what would you do? And from there, then we can help them understand how that same passion can be found in other positions. But we're working backwards. We have to ask questions and listen. And that's scary. It's uncomfortable. It requires time of explaining things, explaining how helping, just like a nurse can still be helping. As a comptroller, it takes time for us to explain. It takes time for us to trial and error as a young person. But if you want to get young people fired up for what we need, if you want to get a young person fired up every day to open their grocery store, help them understand how that grocery store is just as cool as a rapper. And I promise you'll get people out the door wanting to sign up for that position. But until we do that, we're always going to feel like we're in a city of young people who don't want to do anything. But it's I can't, as the representation of the young perspective, I can't in my right mind say that my people don't want to move because I see us moving every day. We just don't know where we're moving towards.
Wow, I love this. I
Council
love
folks,
this.
those of you in council office that's listening, go tell them. Go tell them you heard it and tell them to come. They're welcome to come talk with us and bring their ideas and talk about how they get to, whether they stand on the no taxes or more appropriate taxes over a period of time, not no dropping no bomb like what is happening now. And citizens, let's not act like we didn't do nothing on it. That shows we weren't watching and paying attention like we should. We got, again, stuck into that. I'm not going to raise no taxes. Sound good, but it ain't good for you.
And there's new ways of raising revenue. As this young man, he dropped that knowledge.
All right.
Home ownership, a program
See that?
geared toward a certain specific generation that will take those properties who are currently not paying any taxes, put them back on the tax roll. The beauty of that is it will be young people like yourselves.
Mm-hmm.
They could probably go in there and paint those walls, do those things.
A work equity program.
They can make it happen. All they need to do is have the materials. You give them the guidance, the skill set.
All right,
They
Home
will put the
Depot
work
and
in.
all you
So
resources.
that's a source of revenue because it will take those properties that are not at this point generating any revenue, it will, at least the owner will start paying taxes, and that will generate more revenue for the
Yes, it
city of
will.
Buffalo. So that's the out of the box thinking that we need in the city of Buffalo.
See, and they could use the young person in the rehabbing in itself. There could be a collaboration with what the homes that are built by
Habitat for Humanity.
Habitat, the same way that they go in and help a person build and work on their house that they're going to own. The city could come up with a unique program that would, if I was young, I'd be so excited. And older folks, you don't have to get mad. You look, as many young people as we got, and they can't find somewhere to be. Where they're going to be on the streets. And they should be on the streets mad if we don't do something to prepare room for them. And look, I know some of y'all feeling cool and everything, but look, we gotta get this right. I'm gonna shut up because we want to give you a whole lot more time before we run out and wherever you go.
I'm gonna say my last couple words with this, and I'm gonna pass the mic over to you. Like you said, it's so simple. It almost sounds it's so simple. It almost doesn't sound real. You go on IG? How many kids you see, young guys and girls, putting on all these outfits to look nice? I got these shoes. I didn't get these shoes because they were comfortable. I thought they look nice too. So you got all these fashion people. You see the Buffalo Fashion Runway down, and you see that's popping up. And so, okay, we got all these young people who are into fashion. So you think you have an eye for what looks good and what doesn't. We got all these vacant houses. Come show us what look good in this house. We got a bunch of interior designers. Right. And we're not forcing you to get into that position. But that's all I'm trying to say is that we just need some different discussions because I see passionate young people, but it's help us focus that passion, direct that passion towards the jobs and opportunities that we need for the city. And I think we'll be a lot further ahead. But I appreciate you coming down. Like I said, I didn't really know what a comptroller was, but one of the best explained government officials I've had on the show, because if you can't explain it simply, I feel like you don't know it at all. And you broke that down to where I was following you like, man, why do I even got the mic? So thank you, Ms. Barbara. It's really been a pleasure. And I'm going to rescind the mic over to you.
Thank you. Well, I just like to in closing say it's been a pleasure to be here. I think it's always good when you can be in a safe place and you can be comfortable. Jim, you take me back to those days of, remember Mr. Ted Kirkland? Yeah. I just spoke to him last week. I drove past his house and I thought of him. And we used to have a venue where you could come on his show and you would get asked tough questions. And he would literally put you on the spot. And he would make you respond because he had an audience and they wanted the answers. This is reminiscent of that. And it makes me feel like I'm in a safe place where I can speak truth to power. I want folks to know what's happening in city government when it comes to finances. Yeah. We have it under control right now. It is a tough position. I lose sleep at night sometimes, but at the end of the day, I'm not going to give up. I'm not going to walk away from where I'm at, and I'm going to do everything I can to make sure that the city doesn't go into red. If it does, if those who are empowered do not make the right decision and do what's right, I want y'all to remember this title because it may rear up its head. The Fiscal Stability Authority. The Fiscal Stability Authority is alive and well. The Buffalo Fiscal Stability Authority is in what's called soft status now. It's a control board.
Oh, we got to wrap up.
But if we don't get things together, it will go hard and they will take over the city finances. Hear me loud, hear me well. We need to get it together on the city of Buffalo, or the control board has the opportunity to go hard. And that means we get pushed aside and they take control.
The Honorable Barbara Miller Williams, Comptroller of the city of Buffalo. Thank you, Barbara. And these mics are welcome to you anytime. In community, we got well fed. We got to get to work. Peace and love, everyone. Thank you.
Take care.
Wow.